Welcome back to Club Adam. After a short break, we're back here to talk today about learnings from my first job in technology and what it taught me and how it helped to propel a successful career in technology leadership. Let's get going.
Welcome to the place where the sands meet the tech, where every story is a journey, every lesson an aspect. From the heat of the desert to the cool of our chats, Adam's hosting the show where it's at. Step into Club Adam where the minds come to play. Innovations and gadgets, we're exploring a way. Family leadership and spirit debates. Join us in the desert, don't hesitate.
All right, let's set the stage here. In 1995, February, I got married. I was 21 years old, and for a wedding gift, my brother helped my parents purchase parts to build a home computer. It was a thoughtful gift, and it included things like a computer case, the power supply, motherboard with processor, memory, hard drives, all the necessary cables to connect it all together, and a couple of operating systems. I had the choice of OS2 Warp or Windows 3.1. That was a little while ago. I don't remember which processor it had. I think it was an 8386 clone processor. My parents, they previously had an IBM PS2 Model 80 clone, which had an Intel 8386 in it. But my own personal computer before this was a Commodore 64. Now, I always had a knack for technology and had just spent the previous 2 years serving a mission for my church in the Philippines. And during that mission time, I did have a little bit of experience working with computers, but for the most part, everything I had was, all the knowledge I had was self-taught and just experimenting, having a knack for technology. I told my wife our kids will each have their own personal computer someday, and she thought I was nuts. She really did. But I could see the vision at that time. It made sense. Now, most people didn't have a personal computer in their home at that time. Remember, this was at a time when Bill Gates at Microsoft had a mission to make sure that every home had a personal computer. And in my world, I knew that we would get to the point where we are now, where we have computers in our pockets, in our cell phones. Many children and college-age students have laptops. Some people have more than one. Most homes have at least one computer, if not multiple. And maybe even more when you start counting things like consoles and, Xboxes and things like that are also computers. iPads, it all counts. At this time, I was going to school and still had to work full-time as much as possible, and so did my new bride. I had a get-me-by type job, working at a credit card processing company, running manual transactions through the system each day. And I saw in the newspaper an ad for a technical support representative of a local software company. That was exactly the type of job that I was looking for. I applied for the job and I got the job. And when I got the job, I thought I was in the big time now. I was making about 50% more than my last job, but that was still less than some states' minimum wage jobs today. I was focused on learning everything I could at this new company. I was a customer support representative, technical support, and we built software for law enforcement agencies, for police stations and municipalities across the country. And our software did records management, it did license modules, it did crime reporting modules, it had a lot of different pieces to it. It was a really impressive piece of software. And my job was to wait for the phone to ring. And when it rang, I would answer the phone. And inevitably, it would be some police officer or other law enforcement officer across the country at some agency that was having trouble with their computer system, our software, and I would help them through it. Now, I learned a lot doing technical support. I learned the customer service side of things. I learned how to be friendly, learned how to be positive, even when somebody on the other end of the phone was very stressed out or upset, even angry at times. I remember I got to visit a number of these law enforcement agencies as we were installing the software and configuring custom software for them over the years that I worked at this company. And I remember one day going into the computer room at one of these police stations where they had all their computers set up for the officers to come in and use the computer to write their case reports and input their notes and things like that after the day's work. And they had a big sign on the outside of the door, "No guns allowed." And I laughed at that and asked one of the people there at the police station, and they laughed and they said, "Yeah, nobody wants anybody to shoot a computer out of frustration." And that was how it was sometimes taking these tech support calls. Sometimes they were pretty upset. But I learned by taking that job, we learned how to work with people, learn how to put on a smile and deal in difficult situations and solve technical problems. And like I said, I was focused on learning everything I could. The nice thing is that this company would pay for technical certifications if I were to study for them on my own time, which I did. And I passed the certifications. I learned how to study. I was going to school, so I already had that knack. But I learned how to study for these certifications by printing out the questions and answers and study materials and just carrying it with me everywhere I went. And at every waking moment, if I wasn't doing something else, I was studying that material. And by doing that and passing those certifications, I was able to increase my salary and my stature in the company. I showed interest in learning networking, software development, anything that we were doing at the company. I was going to school for computer science at the same time, but learning at work on the job was much faster and had modern applications compared to what I was being taught at school. So one day, working hard, after I had passed some certifications and had been helping to diagnose network problems and other things around the office, I was asked if I wanted to learn how to estimate custom software development work. Well, the answer was yes. I wanted to learn that. So I studied and I learned how to estimate custom software development. I started learning how to develop software on my own through that experience. So combined with learnings from school, I was able to become somewhat of an understudy to the company's chief architect at the company, learning how software development worked, how the process of software development worked, the software development lifecycle, and getting hands-on into learning how to develop software. Now, on my own, I was learning a little bit about web-based development and web-based applications. And I demonstrated an ability to build web-based applications and was soon put in the role of leading the development work for our new intranet or web-based records management system. I had come quite a long ways in just a couple of years of working for the company. So that brings me to the point of this story. The point of this story is to share with you a couple of key things that I learned at that first job. Those things have helped propel my career to be successful in technology leadership. And the first thing that I learned through that experience was you must have a growth mindset. You always need to be looking to learn new skills and take on new challenges. You can't be satisfied with where you are today. You must always be thinking of growth in mind. How can I learn new things? How can I improve myself? How can I continue to grow? That's what having a growth mindset is all about. And for me, having that growth mindset really helped me to demonstrate that I was interested in learning new things. And then it helped me to actually learn those things, to take the time to study and to figure out how I could gain those skills and become more than just the technical support representative that I was initially hired to be. The second thing that I learned was to be assertive. You can't sit in the background, but you have to take ownership of your career growth. Being assertive means that you're focused on being helpful, that you're focused on always being involved and in the middle of the action. Being assertive means that you take action when necessary and you take ownership when you need to make things happen. The third thing that I think really I learned and helped me grow in this company was showing interest in the business. Sometimes we forget that tech is a business and you can't just be in it for the tech. You need to genuinely care about the mission of the company and the mission of the business and what you're trying to achieve. Showing interest in the business means that you're learning why the business exists, what its mission really is, and how you individually and then the group collectively can help further that mission and grow the business. Showing interest in the business is more than just knowing what the company does, though. It's really getting into the understandings of how it works, why it exists, and why it works the way it does, and then getting involved and being part of that process, being part of that growth of the business. All right. The fourth thing I wanted to share that I learned at this job was to spend time to learn. I already talked about having a growth mindset, which is important, but taking time to learn and actually spending your own time, meaning time away from work, to learn new skills is critical. I mentioned for the certifications how I would print out the questions, the test questions or sample questions and answers, and just carry those with me. It's just like if you're preparing for a big exam at school, but in this case, it's like just something you do all the time. You spend time to learn. When you're on the job and you hear something new that you're not familiar with, you jump in and you learn to figure it out and you try to understand what it all means so that you can gain that knowledge so that the next time it comes up, you're an expert. It also means that when you're spending time to learn, that you're genuinely caring about that experience of understanding and learning and growing. So there we have it. Number 1, must have a growth mindset. Number 2, be assertive. Number 3, show interest in the business. And number 4, spend time to learn. All right. Well, that's really all I had to talk to you about today. Hopefully you've had an enjoyable time listening to my story about my first technical job, and hopefully it gives you some things to think about learning, growing, and things you can do to be successful in your own area. All right. Thanks for joining us here on Club Adam. Until next time.